Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. This is the county courthouse in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where protests have broken out over the Trump administration's latest assaults on American liberty. Hundreds of people gathered in front of the building in Milwaukee to protest the arrest of County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan. She's a 9-year veteran of the bench, and in a criminal complaint filed yesterday, the FBI has accused Dugan of allegedly assisting an undocumented immigrant in avoiding ICE capture after he appeared in her courtroom last week. Now, I got to say, I'm not a lawyer. I've read the complaint. I can't speak to whether her actions are actually what's alleged, and if they are alleged, violate the statutes they say they violate. But much of what this is about, which became almost immediately clear, is making an example out of her for other judges around the country, and not just on the narrow question of immigrants in courtrooms. It's to make an example to the dozens of judges that have ruled against this administration, up to and including the justices of the Supreme Court unanimously. For one thing, the Department of Justice and the FBI made a big show of arresting this judge in a parking lot, like slapping the cuffs on, as opposed to what they do for lots of high-profile defendants, including, say, Donald Trump, right? Filing charges, allowing them to report to court for booking and arraignment. Now, according to the complaint, Dugan was arraigning a man named Eduardo Flores Ruiz on domestic violence charges when ICE agents appeared in the courtroom hallway to arrest him on suspicion of being in the country illegally. They claim Dugan, the judge in question, then escorted Flores Ruiz and his attorney out of her courtroom through another door, a jury door. ICE agents did arrest him after a foot chase. Today, about 8:30 a.m. local time, as Judge Dugan was headed into the courthouse for work, the FBI came back for her, intercepting her in the parking lot, arresting her, transferring her to the custody of the U.S. Marshals. Dugan's legal team put out a statement saying Judge Hannah C. Dugan has committed herself to the rule of law and principles of due process for her entire career as a lawyer and judge. The judge will defend herself vigorously and looks forward to being exonerated. Now, the real way you know that her arrest was part of a propaganda move is from the administration's propaganda. As Dugan was being arrested by the FBI, Trump's FBI director, Kash Patel, was tweeting about her case. We believe Judge Dugan intentionally led federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse, allowing the subject, an illegal alien, to evade arrest. Patel called the man a legal alien before he's had his due process. The judge was running a pretrial conference for this man on criminal charges in her court when ICE agents came in without a court warrant issued by a judge. That's a tactic that ICE agents use all the time, but are now using in courthouses across the country, which is new. Basically, daring judges who are used to controlling their courtroom, who's in and who's out, right, to stop them. But there's no question what message they and their partners on Trump TV are trying to convey here.
So when you see these judges trying to obstruct your efforts to make this country safer, what is your message?
They're going to prosecute you, and we are prosecuting you. I found out about this the day it happened. We could not believe, actually, that a judge really did that. I looked into the facts in great depth. That's her picture up on the screen, Hannah Dugan, who is now in custody. You cannot obstruct a criminal case, and really, shame on her. They're deranged is all I can think of. I cannot believe. I think some of these judges think they are beyond and above the law, and they are not. And we're sending a very strong message today. If you are harboring a fugitive, we don't care who you are.
Again, even under the facts as alleged in the criminal complaint, I'm not sure harboring a fugitive is true about this judge in question. Pam Bondi putting independent judges on notice. And if the message is still too subtle for you, the flurry of posts from Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, and his Homeland Security advisor, Stephen Miller, should make it clear no one's above the law. Don't cross that line. Again, the context here is they see the judiciary and due process and legal protections as competition, as something to vanquish and overcome. This morning, the USA Today obtained and published a copy of the Attorney General Pam Bondi's directive, giving law enforcement power to pursue suspected gang members in ways that absolutely obliterate the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution that, of course, requires warrants for searches. That memo says that under this, somewhat obscure, dubiously invoked 1794 Alien Enemies Act, again, we're not at war, Trump administration says we are, that judicial or administrative arrest warrant is not necessary to apprehend a validated alien enemy. How do you know they're a validated alien enemy before you encounter them? That's a great question. It also adds, this authority includes entering an alien enemy's residence to make an apprehension. In plain language, if a cop or a federal officer is on the lookout for Tren de Aragua, a gang you probably never heard of before the Trump administration decided they were invading us in an act of war, and that cop decides there's a gang member in your house, Pam Bondi says they can just search your house without any warrant at all. Now, it wouldn't be much of an exaggeration to say that fury at the British practice of illegal searches and seizures was the thing that sparked the American Revolution. Trump and Bondi and all of them want to throw those hard-fought rights out the window. Like, they don't like them. They want to destroy them. They're very clear on this. They're clear about all of this, right? I mean, they couldn't be clearer. Every single day, Donald Trump and his inner circle are committing impeachable abuses of power, attempts of establishing a dictatorship, unconstitutional abuses that, at the minimum, were the subject of Richard Nixon's impeachment. For instance, an obsession of using the machinery of the federal government to go after political enemies. 3 times, Trump has now directed Bondi and the Department of Justice to open criminal investigations into people or groups solely for angering him. Earlier this month, it was Miles Taylor and Chris Krebs, 2 former government officials who committed the grievous offenses of just telling the truth about Trump's first term and the 2020 election, which Trump lost and pretended he won, and Chris Krebs said, no, the election was fine. Now he's ordering a criminal investigation. And then yesterday, in an even more audacious power grab, but clearly illegal, right? Trump directed the DOJ to go after ActBlue. That's the main fundraising platform for the Democratic Party. Now, Trump claims ActBlue could be used to launder foreign donations, which is kind of funny when you think about, like, the meme coin he's peddling. But again, there's no evidence of wrongdoing by ActBlue. What it is a very successful fundraising platform for the opposition political party, which he wants to make illegal the way they do in dictatorships. And keep in mind that the recourse that all these targeted entities have, that Trump is going after illegally, unconstitutionally, un-Americanly, the legal recourse they have is to go to the courts, which is what they've largely done. Dozens of judges have blocked his executive orders, his funding freezes, his attacks on DEI, his illegal renditions of migrants and U.S. residents, his ban on transgender service members. He's losing in the courts at literally a historic rate. So what are they doing now? What has Trump done in the past? He's put judges in the rhetorical targets, right? Invade against them. But now they're escalating their war against the judiciary by physically arresting in a parking lot a judge and going on air to tell everyone watching, we are coming for you next. Although you can see from the scenes on the street in Milwaukee where that judge was arrested, at least some Americans are not accepting Trump's dictatorial moves quietly. Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley joins me now. Mr. Crowley, thank you for joining me. I'm curious how you first learned about this today.
I first learned about this actually planting trees in one of our parks. It is Arbor Day. And when I learned about this, quite frankly, I was quite shocked. I couldn't believe what I had seen. I was horrified by the actions of the FBI coming onto our county courthouse grounds, literally going after a sitting judge who's not a flight risk, and literally bringing so many officers to arrest her. I truly look at this as political showmanship, and there's absolutely no reason for the FBI to have carried out their actions the way that they did today.
The argument that the folks in the Trump administration are making is, hey, no one's above the law, including judges. This is an impartial and fair application of the law.
Well, I absolutely agree that no one is above the law. But that also means that no one is beneath its protections as well. And so we don't need to litigate this case out in public. We know we're going to see this happening throughout the court system. But regardless of the facts, this was put on to be a show. This is really to show intimidation of judges across the entire country, because we know that Republicans in Congress have not been standing up to these terrible policies. It's been our judiciary. It's been our justice system system. And so now they're under attack, and it's important now than ever that we're not only protecting due process, but talking about the need to protect our democracy. Our democracy is built on 3 different branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And when one of those branches are falling apart, that means our democracy is falling apart as well. So we have to stand up and really talk about this and bring these issues to light.
You're the county executive from Milwaukee County, which contains the city of Milwaukee, if I'm not mistaken. And I want to ask you this. You represent a community that has lots of folks who are undocumented. And this is true in New York and true in Chicago. It's true in Omaha. It's true in the Central Valley in California, all throughout this country, right? Sometimes those people will be either victims of or witnesses to crimes, sometimes serious crimes. An undocumented person might see someone try to shoot someone else. They, in fact, might be the lone witness who can ID the shooter. What does it do to the safety of the people you represent, to the administration of justice, for the ability to secure convictions of people who've engaged in violent crime, if every single one of those people is scared to come to a courthouse where they might be nabbed by ICE?
I want to be very clear, Chris, that this does nothing to instill trust into our judicial system. Matter of fact, this makes our community less safe. And if we want our community to be less safe, places like our courthouses should be places of safety, a place of refuge, where people are coming to participate in our judicial system. And quite frankly, this sows doubt into our judicial system. That's something, quite frankly, that this Trump administration would like to do. They don't want people participating in our justice system, and they don't want people participating in our system in general when it comes down to voting. And so it's important, again, that we're protecting our due process, protecting the judiciary, because they have been protecting us from these bad policies that he's been trying to put in place. And that's why they're under attack.
All right, David Crowley, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.